This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. 2 weeks ago, we reported that General Motors was likely to start closing assembly plants in China due to a massive drop-off in sales. And while that hasn't happened yet, GM is laying off employees in China. So far, the layoffs only seem to be white-collar staff, including R&D people. But Bloomberg reports that GM will start talks in a couple of weeks with SAIC, its Chinese partner, about reducing manufacturing capacity. GM has a 30-year contract with SAIC to make cars, which expires in 2027. But GM already lost $210 million on its Chinese operations so far this year and wants to restructure the business to make it profitable well before that 30-year contract expires. When Germany yanked its subsidies for electric cars in January, sales fell off a cliff. Before that happened, consumers got a 6,750 euro subsidy that was split between the government and the manufacturer. But when the subsidies stopped, BEV sales fell immediately, and they were down 37% last month alone. The same thing happened in Sweden. It offered subsidies up to 4,600 euros for BEVs, but dropped that last November, and its sales are down 20% this year. Not only has that hurt automakers, it's also hurting suppliers who invested to make EV components. That prompted Liam Butterworth, the CEO of the British supplier company Dole Group, to say the EU has to reinstate subsidies if it wants to meet its goal of eliminating ICE cars by 2035. He may be right, but Germany and Sweden dropped those subsidies because of budget problems. So the question is, where will the money come from? And the same thing could happen in the United States. Donald Trump had been saying he'll get rid of the EV mandate and all EV subsidies on day one if he's reelected. But lately, Trump has mellowed out a bit when it comes to EVs, ever since Elon Musk publicly embraced the former president. And yesterday, in a 2-hour conversation between the two that was broadcast on X, Musk pitched the idea that Teslas are sexy, and Trump said his cars are incredible. But Trump's base of supporters are mostly anti-EV and still want him to stop all government support for electrics. We think one thing is for sure. If Trump does get reelected and he does yank all government support for EVs, it's going to financially damage the automakers and suppliers who have invested so heavily to manufacture them. Volkswagen is once again delaying the launch of its Trinity flagship EV. Germany's Handelsblatt newspaper reports that production of the model is being pushed back from 2026 to 2032. The program was previously delayed by software issues, and now VW is pushing it back further so its existing EV platforms, MEB and PPE, can be used longer, spreading out its investment costs over a bigger period of time. VW is also shaking up other EV launches. An electric Audi A4 is coming at the end of 2028. It will be the first model to use VW's next-gen SSP platform. VW's first model on that platform will be a fully electric Golf that arrives in 2029 or sooner. Then the next-gen ID.4 on the SSP platform will launch in 2030 instead of 2028, and the T-Sport electric is being pushed back from 2029 to 2031. We wonder if this might give VW more time to incorporate EV platforms from Rivian and Xpeng into its lineup.
Trusting tires designed for the long haul. Because you'll always go the distance. For friends. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Alenza tires with an 80,000-mile limited warranty.
GMC refreshed the Terrain to give it a more truck-inspired design and help tie its entire lineup together. The two most noticeable changes are to the grille and C-pillar. The grille has straighter sides that plunge a little deeper into the bumper, and the C-pillar looks more like a shark fin, rather than the roof and body sides kind of clamping onto the side rear windows. But the biggest update is to the interior, which is completely new and now comes standard with an 11-inch digital instrument cluster and a 15-inch infotainment screen and all-new switchgear. Power still comes from a 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder that makes 175 horsepower and can tow up to 1,500 pounds. Front drive models come with a 9-speed automatic transmission, but GMC is adding an 8-speed auto to some all-wheel drive versions. The 2025 Terrain will start launching this year, followed by higher-priced models like the more off-road focused AT4 and the more premium Denali, which come in 2025. Global electrified vehicle sales were up in July. According to market research firm RowMotion, automakers sold 1.35 million BEVs and PHEVs last month, up 21% compared to a year ago. That growth was mostly fueled by China, which accounted for 880,000 of those sales, which is a 31% increase. In North America, sales were up 7%, and over in Europe, EV sales were down about 8% in July. And speaking of car sales, Nissan's slump in the U.S. is putting a huge dent in dealer profits. Automotive News reports that the average Nissan dealership earned 70% less profit in the first half of this year compared to last year. And even more alarming, nearly 40% of Nissan's roughly 1,100 dealerships are losing money. Nissan's dealer return on sales slipped from 3.2% last year to 1% this year, and the brand has lost 8 franchise dealers so far in 2024. Nissan's market share in the first half was just under 6%, about 2% less than the brand had 5 years ago. And dealers tell Automotive News that Nissan can't sustain a retail network with that size market share, and that the brand should have up to 40% fewer dealerships. BYD is coming out with an all-electric hot hatch, and it will make its debut at the end of the month. In May, it showed off a sporty concept called the Ocean M, which looks like the inspiration for the prototype of the production model that will be shown off at the Chengdu Auto Show on August 30th. Several outlets are calling the model the Seal 06 GT, but Gasgoo reports that BYD has actually registered 4 different names for the car and will pick one before its debut. Rear drive models are said to come with up to 165 kilowatts or 221 horsepower, and all-wheel drive models will produce up to 310 kilowatts or 415 horsepower. Battery sizes are either roughly 60 kilowatt hours or 73 kilowatt hours and provide up to 605 kilometers or 375 miles of range. Starting price is reported to be around $20,000, and sales are expected to kick off in September. The model will help BYD grab even more of the EV market, but it's already dominating PHEVs in China. According to CarNews China, BYD had 9 of the top 10 selling plug-in hybrids in China last month, and for the full year, it has 7 of the top 10 selling PHEVs. That's for wholesale, not retail sales, and does not include extended range electrics. But even without those EREVs, PHEV sales in July accounted for almost 34% of the total new energy vehicle market in China. Ford is partnering with Texas's leading retail electric provider to offer free at-home EV charging. TXU Energy will provide Ford F-150 Lightning, Mustang Mach-E, and Escape plug-in hybrid customers with a credit that will cover their entire charging costs between the hours of 7 p.m. and 1 p.m. the next day. They feel by incentivizing EV owners to charge during off-peak hours, it will help make the electrical grid more stable, and customers can schedule the free charging through Ford's app or from the screen inside their vehicle. Ford and the energy provider will also use this opportunity to gauge interest in future energy savings programs that help support the electrical system in the state, which we think could include bidirectional charging that essentially allows an EV's battery to become a part of the grid. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. MEDC, where Michigan businesses are powering the future of mobility. And by Tejan Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
When we did our research for the talent that we need for this program, Michigan was really the top of the list. In order to be successful in this space, you really have to have the right people, the right mindset, the right environment.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Tejan Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
Intrepid's NeoVi Pi, allowing automotive engineers to interface, capture, and monitor vehicle data using Raspberry Pi. As a matter of fact, it's the automotive industry's first robust platform for Raspberry Pi, featuring Intrepid CAN-FD technology and Raspberry Pi Compute Module. The NeoVi Pi is designed for automotive environments, allowing use with relative power ranges and applications. In addition, the NeoVi Pi enables you to use the Raspberry Pi for compute while avoiding additional development to adapt to network environments. That makes the NeoVi Pi powerful enough to solve your vehicle network problems, yet small enough to fit in your backpack. One of many Intrepid tools used for developing zonal architecture and software-defined vehicles.